Okay, I'm here with one of my.
Well,
You got the one of my best friends, favorite musicians, greatest drummers, Jason Brown. What I want to talk about, because there's so many different things on YouTube, on Instagram, people talking about music. What's interesting to me is kind of the, to leave the technical aspects of music for them a little bit more behind and talk a little bit more about kind of the stuff that we talk about, but I don't know if spiritual is the word, but the intangible elements of music, like there's certain things that you can learn from a book or from, school, when you go to school, the basics maybe.
I guess it is when that qualifies holistic, maybe?
Yeah, but what about beyond that, like the relational aspect or playing together, the things that you can't necessarily learn in a linear way?
Yeah,
it's the experiential, the intangibles,
Mm-hmm.
we talk about that in sports and
There
stuff
you
too.
go, man.
So that's kind of some of the things that I wanted to ask you about and talk about today, if you're down.
I'm down. Let's go. Let's do it, man.
Yeah. So kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about is because now, like, I've learned so much playing with you and Monty in the rhythm section team. And people talk, like in school, they talk about bass and drums, like, oh, you gotta, hook up, you gotta connect, and it's like, okay, what does that really mean,
Sure, that's a long time ago.
Right, I remember
not even used terminology.
I know, I remember people saying, oh, you really gotta lock in with the drummer. I'm like, what does that mean? What does that look like? But like, what is that bass drum relationship in jazz or in music? What does that mean to you? Like, how do you think about that or approach that?
And I probably think about that far too much, actually. I feel like I think about that a lot more than our predecessors. And I don't mean that to suggest, I don't mean to suggest that our predecessors didn't think about that, but I just mean that I probably obsess about the nomenclature of that kind of stuff. It's very difficult to put into words, let alone to quantify. So that only makes you want to find a way to describe it even more.
Right.
And I guess to answer your question is I think I think it's something that it's kind of everything. If you know what I mean. It's overplayed, it's underplayed. It's talked about too much, it's not talked about enough. It's the foundational principles of what we do. It's also one of the least important kind of aspects of what we do. I think depending on how you mean it, I guess I would say.
Well, like say that when we're playing together, what do you find? What do you focus on? What's helpful for you? Where's your mind at?
At this moment in my life, and I'll explain why I say it that way after I say what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Is right now I'm just really focused on trying to keep a steady beat. And that's pretty much it. Like really, there's this hyper focused on maintaining a certain energy level of an outward expression through what I'm playing, but also keeping that beat steady. Because what I found over the years is that excitement you can become really excited in very different ways that move you off of your tempo.
Okay.
And why I kind of said right now in my life, and why I'm so ambiguous about even saying that is because that question takes different tones depending on where you are in your career and where you are in your mental state, and where you are in your self-worth and in your ego maybe,
right?
And how you handle those two things with relation to other people. So, for example, when you're really young in music and you have a recent rush of excitement and certainty, and so you're getting a lot of compliments, you're getting a lot of positive reactions. So you're kind of feeling yourself. You might be prone to rushing more because you have a windfall of confidence behind you. People are telling you you're doing well. People are telling you you're doing the right things. So you kind of feel like you're invincible, like you're a super person. You can do no wrong. You're the golden child.
Right.
And so that will embolden you to take actions that that you're more concerned with the success of and the getting more compliments.
Did you go through that phase?
I think everyone goes through that phase. I think I was in that phase for longer than a lot of my contemporaries were, because for me, I grew up listening to music in a lot of different places, but I didn't grow up playing the drums or music and the way that we play and the aesthetic that we play in now. I didn't really grow up in that. What I mean is I didn't grow up like in a church, playing in a church, or I didn't grow up playing in some kind of band like that, like a modern quartet or a trio kind of band.
Right.
Until I was almost in college.
Okay.
So yeah, I was one who was always kind of getting told what I knew was good or how I played was good. So that would always embolden me to try things, and I wasn't very focused, particularly on tempo. That was kind of something that it would come when it came idea. Let's focus on all the crazy things we can do.
Right.
As opposed to really being, I think if you grew up in the church playing specifically, then you tend to focus more on the fundamentals of taking care of your parish,
right,
as opposed to the idea of how cool it is to be playing music. I think that's in there,
right,
but there's a very real responsibility to the people around you, and sacred situations that just isn't there in secular situations. You don't have. I had a garage band. So there was no one in charge of tempo in the garage band.
There's no responsibility.
Yeah,
So do you feel that responsibility now in a way that
that's what I'm saying. I think, and also because, there's a lot of challenges from the past, past failures that you're always thinking of, and you want to rise above those and do better and never be in that space again. And
what kind of things come to mind?
Well, one of the main, I think the main reason, maybe the only reason, I don't know, I can't say for sure, but it was what was hinted at, a reason that I was replaced in one of Nicholas Payton's bands, by Nicholas Payton himself, was that my tempo was all over the place. That, specifically that when I did certain things, that it wasn't, I'm not sure, but I think, looking back in hindsight, what he was really more annoyed with was that, what he said was that if I was doing something like a certain drummer, the tempo would go up, and if I was doing something like another drummer, the tempo would go down.
Oh, okay.
So like if I was doing a more kind of Elvin Jones thing, it would be more like kind of leaning behind and prone to dragging. If I was doing something like a more Tony Williams thing, it would be more prone to rushing.
Right.
I think that was what both was unacceptable. It was either had to be one or the other for him, which is fair, but I think that was so something like that, and just in general, kind of through college. That was a thing, really kind of sticking the tempo, but also the idea of playing on top of the beat was really big.
Right.
And
is that an idea that you think about? Does that
not anymore? No. I just kind of know where. After a while, I didn't really believe this, but I feel like it's true. After a while, you just kind of your general awareness is so strong, and you've done it so many times that you really just know where the beat is. But it takes a lot of introspection, a lot of honesty, and really dealing with yourself. And so like someone like Monty, like he loves playing on top. Like he comes from that particular corner of the music that we play in that really likes things to be high level, excitable.
Right.
But how many times has Monty told us, maybe lean back or more, a little more, something like that. So that can really mess with your psyche. You have to really be secure in yourself and secure in what tempo is and focused on the tempo. And we've also played a lot of songs where we change grooves a lot and go into, so that will mess with the tempo. It sounds easy, like, just play, go from this field to that field. Yeah. But those are two fundamental, the feel is everything. So how it feels, which can move your perception of where the time is. So like I try to think of things in maybe more half notes or whole notes than I do in quarter notes or eighth notes.
Okay.
I think like when you're younger, you think, at least I used to think more about that. So if I had to switch between a funk or an eighth note and a swing, that the eighth notes in the eighth note part were like double time swing, kind of, if that makes sense. Yeah. So if you were playing something where where you would be swinging here, and then you go into another tempo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like now I just think about the whole thing there.
That.
Right, yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and then.
Yeah.
But then, as opposed, and when I was younger, I would think this, like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. Yeah. Not really, but but that would be the general mindset.
That would be your what you're conscious of more so than the
Yeah,
beat,
because for an eighth note groove, you know, how you feel the quarter notes and the half notes is just as important as how you do in swing. So you don't want to be thinking, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. You want to be thinking 1 E end or 2 E end. I mean, I don't know if you can really hear this. You might be able to hear the difference even there. I mean, it's versus 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 versus 1 E end.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like really leaning on the one and perception is reality, as they say, right? So I mean, so when you get how you perceive something can also how you envision something can also affect how others perceive it.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah.
You know,
so like what's going on in your own consciousness is going to affect how people receive it when
absolutely.
They hear it.
I believe that fully, man. Absolutely. I think the audience. The less you know about music and the more you're feeling it, the more you can be affected by that. You know, because you're not. I think it goes both ways. On one level, when you're not aware of something, sometimes you're not susceptible to it. So like if you don't know that you're wearing some weird clothes or something, you're not going to be embarrassed when people are laughing at your clothes, right? You're just like, what's wrong with those guys? They're weird, right? But if you do know a lot about fashion and one thing is wrong in your ensemble, you might be freaking out. Like dang, what's going on? My shoelace is out. They're gonna laugh at me. Like no one cares about your shoelace. but to you, you know so much about it, you really care. And then vice versa. There's like because you might know a lot about fashion and just having tassels or a cummerbund or whatever is just normal for you with that outfit. You won't think that it's anything special. But to someone who never wears a tuxedo or never wears cuffs or they're looking at you like, wow, that's so amazing. I never knew all the nuances to wearing. Right. You know, so it goes both ways. But definitely, how you're thinking about it is very much felt by others around you.
Right. Yeah, I like that. And for you, it's like, I don't know, because swing is such a mysterious thing to me in a way. It's so different than everything else to me. But to you, is swing like a different than, does it feel very different than any other kind of music?
Absolutely, man.
Well, how would you describe that? Like, you know, to me, there's so few drummers that really make me feel a certain way when I play swing too. And obviously you're one of the very few. And I'm like, I wish I could put my finger on what that is and that feeling.
I think a lot of it is fear.
Fear?
Yeah, or a lot of the missing feelings in other people is fear, is like a fear of commitment to the beat, you know, to the actual rhythm. I think one of the reasons I think swing is the greatest rhythm of them all once you understand it and start to play it, is because of the utter freedom in it. Like there's almost no musical requirement for swing drumming. It's just feeling. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing quote funk or pop or rock or metal, there's all these requirements. Like if you're a metal drummer, you can't show up to a gig with one drum,
right?
You know what I mean, and a brush, and be cool. You know, there's no other music that you can do that. You can't. I mean, you can't show up to a metal gig with no bass drum or a gospel gig with no. You know what I mean? These things people would kill you. They'd literally be upset that you're doing this.
Yeah.
And yet you could have just one cymbal, and if you're just swinging now, not if you're going into a lot of other crazy things, but if you're just playing tunes, you're just playing standards or tunes that are only swing, or even tunes that are swing but that are just in the swing tradition and what I consider to be the real true jazz tradition, you could just bring a cymbal and you're going to be cool. You know what I mean? Just having a cymbal and surfaces, because then that dictates the dynamics of the band. So if you just have a cymbal, you know, maybe you're playing only acoustically, and if you're playing acoustically, then you know, then a tabletop counter or the upside down of a pad is going to be a sufficient surface to create contrast.
Right.
So then you can just play with that. I mean, the cymbal stand will be another voice, so you can just play. There's so many options in swing,
right.
and I know I'm kind of getting off. I want to bring it back around. But so that level of freedom also applies to the musical interpretation and to the beat and to the stresses that you put on different parts of a song. So it's the most freeing music, I think. I mean, everything else is, I mean, you don't have to play any fills. You know what I mean? Like if you're playing in a rock and roll, like a popular rock and roll sense, You're going to be doing 4 to 8 bars, and you're going to have to play some kind of a fill.
Right.
And it's something distinct that involves eighth notes or triplets or 16th. You can just hit 4
right.
at the end of an 8-bar phrase, and that's enough of an indicator that everyone is cool in swing. You can just play quarter notes with no other patterns. You can play all quarter notes on all your limbs, and that will raise it up to another. There's all these little elements you can bring that other musics just don't have. They're all full of the show of playing and the technicality in playing, which swing is more reductive. It's about learning. It's about how you can play the least and get the most out of it. That's not saying that that you can't be complicated. Of course you can.
Right.
But each level of being complicated has a different emotional reward, I find, as opposed to other musics where complexity is the standard, and then the emotional rewards are kind of in how loud it is.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Or how choppy it is, right? You know what I mean? So like gospel, I feel like is a good example where the level is always really high, but the choppy part of it, the chops part of it, whatever, the gospel chops part of it is about maximum technicality, minimal musicality.
Right.
Not that it's not musical, it's just that the level of musicality is relatively low compared to all the things you can do musically on the drums. I mean, playing really fast and moving around a lot is kind of tends to be low on the musical factor. It's more about raising up everyone's spirits and about them being excited about a huge display of drum technique.
Yeah.
Same with kind of metal, same with kind of rock and roll. They all kind of stay at this high level of intensity,
right,
and then raise it by doing even more fast things. Swing is not like that. You don't have to. You can just kind of put more of your soul into it.
Ooh.
And it gets more.
Yeah. How do you learn to put your soul into what you're doing?
I don't know. I'm answering this horribly, man. I feel like I'm not giving.
No, this is cool. This is cool.
I think intent really means a lot. You know what I mean? Like if you believe it's true. I think. It's one of the reasons I'm always laughing at the youthful, refrain of manifestation. Because I'm like, you don't know what that means. People say that all the time now, and I don't think I think that there's a lot of people who love to say it because it makes them sound good. But I mean, I feel like I manifest every day when I'm sitting at the drums. Like the idea of putting something out there that can be felt tangibly by others is kind of the rule of the game for what we do.
Good.
And so.
When I don't want to cut you off.
No, go ahead.
Like when I started playing with you and Monty, like that's kind of something that I noticed, just like the intensity of the feeling of like how much he believed in what he was doing, and like what it was. I was just like, oh man, I need to like get on this level and really quick of like there needs to be a certain level of I don't know, like weight coming from me to keep up with you guys, because it was like just so intense in what it meant to you guys.
Sure, man,
as you're playing, I was like, oh man, this is another level. Like, you play other gigs and they're good, but it doesn't have that kind of power to it, and it comes from that faith thing or that.
Yeah, man, you have to believe it. And that's what I was saying about what you were asking just a second ago about what kind of makes the swing. I think, belief is huge. I think a lot of guys, a lot of people, because we grow up with eighth note music and the pop beat. If you play the pop beat, it's easier to believe in it, right? I mean, you've heard it your whole life. You've seen the effects of it on other people, whether you think about music in that way yet or not. You've seen, everyone has seen, and even with the decline of MTV from what it was when I was a young person, where it was something that was a cultural, MTV as a place of watching music videos was a major cultural thing. When I was growing up, so almost everyone saw a live band, on sometime on MTV on Friday night, or they saw live music instruments being played in a music video a lot. I don't know how much people watch the actual videos on MTV anymore. I know they watch the shows, but that was a big thing. Kind of everyone up until around 20 years ago, everyone got some dose of watching live music and the effects of it. And so, but in that time over the years, swing kind of got the swing beat as a presentation wasn't really the thing, So everyone knows what a rock and roll beat looks like, or a pop beat or a funk beat. And what it's supposed to sound like. So I think people are much more grounded in that. It's much less thought. But swing is this kind of abstract thing that, you know, your parents' listen to.
Or at Christmas. Charles Schools always told me that's the one holdout in popular culture is at Christmas. Yeah.
Sure, right. Or if you're a theater kid. I mean,
Yeah.
like, you know, I mean, if you like those kinds of Broadway shows, then you're gonna hear some of that kind of music because all that music was the popular beat of the day. All that music was designed to be played over swing, and that was the beat that people played things to.
So did the believing in what you're doing, did that just come with time, or were there certain breakthroughs that you had that you
I mean, yeah, there was a lot of breakthroughs. I mean, I think the first major breakthrough was the unification of what I was learning in college about theory and how that applies to just music in general. The idea of cadences.
Okay.
You know, and like there was a moment when I was really struggling with the music history course because there was a component of it that involved being able to listen to something, an excerpt for about between 5 and 30 seconds, depending on what the excerpt was, and they had to write down what the piece was, or at least write down, I think, maybe just the period, or you know, something like that, where they would give you a list of people and it could only be
classical stuff. Yeah,
it was a classic
multiple choice.
Where like as long as you knew what it wasn't plus who it could be, you would get it. So you know, so you're listening to you get a Walter music, and then you might have you got Weber and you know Tchaikovsky. You know, Mozart and Bach. You know what I mean? So like obviously Weber and Tchaikovsky are not in the mix, right? You know, you already know. You know, Romantic and Second Viennese, you're out. So, but I was struggling with that, and then something happened. I was listening to Bird with Strings one day, and I just kind of it all kind of hit at once. I was like, man, this is like I was like, is improvisation just everybody doing a theory assignment continuously, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's composition.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's literally theory, like you know. And this is why it's ludicrous that they don't have more jazz for just basic theory, just for everyone. I mean, you know, because it's basically a theory assignment, real time, for as many courses as you want to do that. I mean, that's what we do. And so when that hit me, then that kind of changed. It was like, well, then my function relates to that in some kind of way, you know, not just playing the time. I mean, I always thought more harmonically than I thought rhythmically, kind of coming in to the music. I always thought more about, because I guess that's more of a pop garage band logic anyway, right? I mean, did you ever have a garage band or anything like that?
No, I didn't know, yeah.
One of the biggest frustrations of a garage band is what are you going to play at a part? So typically someone will come up with the riff. Yeah. And then someone else comes up with the riff on that riff. Yeah. You know, so between bass and guitar. Yeah. And then the drums have to play a part for that now section, that part. And then the next part comes up. You know, I'm going back to those days. There's no measure. There's no ABA. None of that stuff. You just have a part, and you play that part 5 times
until it changes.
Unless it's 10 times, and because you meant by the measure, not by every other measure. You know? So there's tons of room for fighting, and it's a very good bonding experience. You know? So the next part happens. You play the first part for 8 times, and the next part's coming up. You got to change the part. You can't play the same drum part for both sections. That's not what you do, right? I mean, you've been listening to all this music that you love, and it always changes. You go to a cymbal, you start crashing, you do something changes. So I was used to that kind of mentality, very loosely, not nearly as analytical, but just kind of change the part because it's different. Yeah. That was the idea. So I kind of tried to play drums that way, where the things I was playing I thought should go with the changes, go with the different parts that, you know, and then the nomenclature of what we do is chord changes and forms and A, B, A. And so that when that clicked, it was like, okay, so that's kind of what happened in my ears was that the drums were playing things that went along with the theory assignments as far as I was concerned. So what Charlie Parker played and how he played was influenced by the chord changes that were available then at that moment, and what Max Roach is playing behind him was because of what, it's kind of the cause and effect. Because Bird was playing this, Max is going to play this, but they were both related to the idea of what was moving in the changes.
The whole musical structure. Yeah.
And so that's kind of, and once that happened, that's kind of really how I started to think about things going forward. I didn't really put a lot of pressure on the beat per se. I don't think that, I think that's a very uniquely, like more like maybe a church thing and a swing thing at first. I mean, I think that every band gets to the point where they want their drummer to be in time. But I think that the kind of time we're talking about really is one of the few things that I will say, not few, but one of the major components of what people talk about when they're talking about black music in particular. It's something that's very specific to the black American aspects of jazz. I think that's why people like to say African rhythms and European harmonies. I think that's a little bit weak, but I think it's more of just an American ideal is what jazz music represents. But I can see why they say that, because the rhythmic component is so thorough, I think, in jazz, that it's very different. I don't think that country or bluegrass or quote early rock and roll really considered tempo the same way. Not that they didn't think about time.
Right.
It's just that the weight of the tempo, like we're talking about, wasn't nearly as deep and important as it tends to be in how Black Americans put that effort into time in the music,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a static thing. I mean, like nowadays, it's kind of unheard of to not play with the metronome, right, in a studio set situation, or
right.
having great time is a big thing.
Yeah.
It's just that back, in the beginnings coming into, let's say up until the 70s at least, I think that was primarily the kind of thing, groove and time and funk and swing, these kind of terms were terms that were really coined in the Black community, because it was dealing with the absolute nature of time as a force, not as a marking of the passage of time.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like the Beatles have some time, but the Beatles' time is nothing like Chuck Berry's time.
No, yeah,
or like or James Brown funk is completely different.
I like what you said, time is a force. Like that's where the thing is. It's in there somehow. You know?
But then you look by the 70s, you get someone like the Bee Gees. The Bee Gees have some of the most all-time classic American songs, and the time is hard. Like it's like the commitment to time by that point. Average white band. I'm just so the contrast, or something like, what's my man, the bass player. I'm terrible with names.
With who?
Sly and the Family Stone,
Yeah.
right? So he has an amalgam. His band is white, black, everything, But by this point, I'm saying, it's like all of America's on board. The whole world is on board with time by that point, and the way that it was only really felt musically, I feel like, in the Black American community up until about 65 and on. You know what I mean? Like then, because now everything has a really hard time, and everything is about like a deep pocket. Like I don't like trap per se, but the pocket there is pretty deep. I don't like Taylor Swift, but the pocket, you know what I mean? Like pocket means something now for everyone. Like it's not just like a black thing.
Right.
Like dancing black isn't really a thing anymore. Everyone wants to twerk. You know what I mean? Like that's so. So in that regard, I think that's kind of how I looked at it early. It was just kind of like just playing the drums to the sounds.
Right.
I really wasn't thinking so much about like how each beat felt.
Right. So how did you get into that? How did you get that together? I'm sure there's so many people that are like, I remember people telling me, oh, you got to get your time together. You got to make the groove just feel good, just the groove. And I'm like, that sounds great. That's what I want to do, but I have no clue how to do that, and it's not happening right now.
I mean, man, a lot of tears, man.
Yeah.
A lot of alone at night, frustrated. Like, what did they mean?
I'm sure that's not what people want to hear, but yeah.
I mean, but I'd rather be honest, because I think that everybody thinks that it's not that way. I think that a lot of people think that it's either you're born with it. It's kind of like the whole I
kind of thought that, and I kind of thought that I didn't have it. But.
Yeah, man. I think that's what a lot of people think, man. I think it's or they'll tap out. I mean, I know.
I thought maybe I just have to be from a certain culture that this is baked in, because it's definitely not from my culture. So I just thought maybe I'm cooked, but I'm trying to do this anyway.
Yeah. I know many cats who will remain nameless, but many white musicians who I feel the same exact way, who've purposefully changed courses in their entire careers to play different kinds of music because they felt that frustration about like playing a different kind of jazz. I mean, that's kind of, I think, one of the cruxes of quote Euro jazz is like the move away from dealing with hard groove.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. But I mean, you see it now. I mean, it's one of those things. It's about exposure, really. I mean, and I don't mean overexposure, just being exposed to music. I mean, there's a reason why that dude from somewhere, I forget his name, from the middle of nowhere in the Midlands in England, is playing all those funky bass lines from Michael Jackson and stuff like that.
Pino Palladino?
Yeah. You know what I mean? It's like if you want it and your mind is open and your ears are open when you're listening to it, you're gonna get it. You know what I mean? It's not really, and I think that's the main thing is besides all the tears and frustration, is just being open and listening. I mean, you've heard me say this, one of my favorite sayings is the words of wisdom are closed to the ears of ignorance. And so you can't, if you're just not ready to hear something, literally, you're not going to hear it.
That's absolutely
true. I mean,
true.
there's so many things I go back to listen to now. I was just talking to Benny Green about this the other day, is that I was like, did I even know this record? I mean, records I've had for 30 years. I'm just like, did I even know this record? Like, how did I not hear this before?
Yeah.
And so that's me. That's someone who's got, I'll be 47 this year. So that's 30 years I've been listening to Inner Urge. And there's still things that I'm finding and hearing for the first time that I just looked over. Your ears, I'm listening for Elvin Jones to play triplets a certain way.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
Right.
And you don't really realize how much you're into only that.
Right.
That you're missing McCoy's thing here, you're missing Bob Cranshaws thing here, you're missing something Joe does there.
Yeah.
And so the same thing with groove, you know what I mean? Like you kind of, like for me, I guess one of the first things is learning how time feels to the half note and the quarter note.
Yeah.
Was a big thing. In recent years, learning how working with odd groupings really helps.
Okay.
What
is that? What kind of the?
Well, I was working out of a book, a drum book, a technique book called the Drum Superior Technique.
Okay.
By this guy Guy Lefebvre, a French rudimental, like a French Air Force drummer.
Oh, okay. And
a lot of the stuff that was in this book was just passed down through generations. He was the first person to start. He was one of the first of a group of guys who started to put this stuff into print. All their teachers were students of people who actually were in Napoleon's. I
remember you telling me about some of that stuff. It's so interesting.
Yeah, Napoleon's Vanguard, the Imperial band.
I didn't even know that. That's what the drum calls were. Military directions and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I knew that, but I hadn't thought about it from. I took a lesson with a guy named Joseph Tompkins, and he brought the kind of culmination of why some of these things were so complicated from this quote French rudimental style to the four. I mean, I knew that there's a popular thing that we use for technique called three camps from the American Revolutionary War.
Okay,
and that's an all clear sign. Cadence.
What does that mean, clear
sign? Well, like all clear. All clear.
Oh, all clear. Okay, yeah.
So the first camp would play at sunset. Would play the first melody of three camps, and then a couple of miles later, the next military base would play.
That's cool. Can you just play one so I can just hear what it sounds like?
Yeah, sure.
Because it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just I'll just give you the shell of each of the quote camps. So the first camp is just the simplest one. So it's just like there's a name for this. It's a certain kind of cipher. I forget what they call those ciphers. But anyway, so just so you knew that everybody was cool and that the enemy hadn't infiltrated your base at a certain hour of the evening.
Yeah.
The first camp in a row of camps would play. Would play.
That's cool.
Right. So but then the next camp would play. Right, so that was add that.
Okay.
And the third camp would play.
Okay, so each one is a slight variation.
Right, and then all three of them would play another refrain of that.
Oh, that's cool.
So if any one of them played something, like if someone played. then they knew them. They both of the other camps knew that camp was compromised.
Oh wow, see, that's so cool. Like rhythm is literally a language.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man. So of course it is.
I know, but it's just such an obvious example, you know.
But that's what I mean about manifesting and putting. So what is? So I used to ask questions like, well, what is? I mean, because everyone else always wants you. The first thing they want you to do is play a good time. The next thing they want you to do is make them exciting.
Yeah.
And that's always the way it goes.
Yeah.
Like first keep the beat, then make me excited.
Yeah.
So what is making you exciting? What are you doing that's exciting that I can help make you be more exciting? Well, but once you figure out that everything is basically a theory puzzle, you're finding out how to apply what the sounds you want to apply over a specific set of chord changes, then what kind of rhythm makes a certain kind of chord progression sound more exciting? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that. So that was always my logic. Is what is so if Elvin Jones plays triplets or groups of three, or does these ideas of quote hemiola or going across the bar line or ostinatos or whatever he uses, when does he use them and why? So John Coltrane's playing a lot of things when these ostinatos are occurring.
Sure.
So that must mean that if a soloist is playing a lot of things, then ostinatos is a form of tension. And the release comes from increasing volume and then kind of smacking one at the top of a form, right? So ostinatos equals tension equals playing more behind, equals more excitement for a soloist.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So those kind of so what that's so we're saying what is rhythm? If rhythm can really speak, then what's the word when playing the drums for excitement?
Yeah.
What's the word for tenderness?
Yeah.
What's the word for?
I like that. What's the word for tenderness?
Like how do you let everyone out there and inside of our unit know that's what you're trying to convey by what you're playing?
Right. Right. That's super cool, man. That's awesome. I had a few things I wanted to ask you.
Go.
When you started to play with Monty, what did you feel like you needed to learn or grow into, or what?
I was kind of an open book at that point, man. I mean, obviously the Caribbean stuff.
Yeah.
You had to, but I had a few things I knew. I mean, that was weird too, because what I found over the years is that sometimes it's better to. Sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Sometimes it's better to underplay what you know, or sometimes it's better to say nothing or underplay what you know than it is to come out saying I know.
Yeah, yeah.
And not for any nefarious reason or to lie to someone, but typically because when someone asks you, do you know about this? There's something they want to tell you already. Mm. And sometimes by saying I do, you can stall their. You can take away their thunder as well as stall the exchange of information.
That's
because sometimes someone being excited is a good thing when you're talking to someone. They tell you more things.
Yeah, yeah.
And so there were some things I knew about Caribbean, about like a calypso or about this, but I never really ever went that way with Monty because I wanted to know what he wanted to tell me.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wanted to know what do you know?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I know something, but what is it that you think I don't know? Like, what are we doing here? Let's find out. You know?
That's cool.
And so I just wanted to be open to that and just find out, and as well as it was kind of, I prepared kind of thinking going back to the times I wanted to play with Oscar or Ray or Betty Carter, the people I knew that were extraordinarily difficult. Or the word was that they were extraordinarily demanding of their band members.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of put my mindset in that this is going to be a demanding gig as far as the expectations and the information.
Yeah.
So that's all I was really thinking about.
Gotcha.
It's just trying to keep my mind open and let my thoughts and spirit be ready to receive whatever was going to come. Whatever's going to come, not to close yourself off. That's a mistake you make a lot when you're younger. You're so ready to prove yourself, you close yourself off to other possibilities. You're like, it can't be this, it has to be this. And if you don't hear that, then you tense up a lot and you're worried, and that can go sour.
Yeah. So sometimes when we're playing, like it's always great because Monty's incredible, and we played so much. But then sometimes it's just like it kind of goes up to another level,
Right, yeah.
So have you learned, like, what is that to you? Like, have you learned things that can help that to happen, or
I think if there's anything that helps is what I just said, is just learning how to let go and really be open. Mm-hmm. I think, because there's always a responsibility. There's always responsibilities when playing. Mm-hmm. But I think as long as you check those off early, and as long as you kind of start to put those in as your standard operating procedure, and then don't think about them, that works better than trying to force things. I mean, we're human, so it's hard not to do that. But I think the less you can do that, the less you can kind of try to put expectations or try to force specific outcomes through your exptions. The better you are, the more naturally it will go to the place you're talking about.
Right.
It doesn't always happen, but it's kind of like, I don't know, man. It's kind of like, I mean, you played sports. It's kind of like you get just do that same thing you did last game. Like, when does that really work?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it could happen, but then for whatever reason, your finger always slips when it's on the seam, or what was dust the other day is now mud, and you can't get your bat, grip the right way. You can't, you know what I mean? There's always something that prevents you, and then that just makes you more upset. It's like, well, man, the dirt and the chalk was perfect the other day, and I was gripping the bat perfectly. Why can't I? Or maybe you're a switch hitter, and they're making you bat lefty the whole time. And you know what I mean? Like, you just
what I tell my students too is like it's impossible to do something the same way twice, because the first time the reason that you did it was for whatever reason. And the second time the reason that you did it is because you decided that I did it last time.
Exactly.
So the source of it is something completely
different.
Yeah.
I mean, you can get there.
Yeah.
But I think it's more about it's more about how coaches or teachers always tell you the same thing, because having, like I just said, being prepared early, not so much being prepared early as there's a checklist of things that will help promote this to happen, whether it happens or not.
Right.
So by doing those every time,
that's really good.
You know what I mean? Then you're always set up for the best possible chance to have it happen, as opposed to just like trying to force it to happen. So so you always follow your checklist. This is why you always, the guy always steps out the box and he pulls his gloves. And, those are as much ticks as they are your entry fee to get into the zone.
Yeah.
Because once you do all that, your glove isn't going to slip. You have enough grip on your bat. You know you've dug a nice spot into the box. You're covering the plate. All the things that you need to ensure that you might rattle a pitcher this one time.
Right.
You've done them.
Right. So you're focusing on those things that you can control. Rather than I got to hit this dinger right now.
Exactly. And then if they miss, then you're good. Then you have an increased chance. And if they don't miss, but you just, the dude didn't get the ball all the way on his knee, so you can see it the whole time. Whatever it is, you're just there and you can smash it.
Yeah.
And the same applies here. Like, as long as you're not trying too hard, like you're not going to show off. You're not trying to put any extra chops you don't need to show off.
Yeah.
You're not. You know what I mean? You're not angry or upset at the leader, and you don't want to give him whatever they might need because they embarrassed you. Or you're just calm. You're thinking about the music. You're thinking about how you can serve the music and your bandmates, and then just let that happen. It kind of. And if it happens, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But there's no excuses about, I didn't try hard enough. I wasn't prepared. I didn't have the right stick. I didn't have, eliminate as many of those as you can. And then you're going to get closer to being ready to go there. Getting there is always, tricky. I mean, who knows?
It's a little bit mysterious.
Yeah, there's always a little bit of mystery there. But I think what you start to get is the refinement of those pieces. Like, how do you, do you have your... I mean, it's like what Ron kind of talks about, like what he was saying. I was talking with him recently, where he was saying, the string is not going to get any louder or whatever. Yeah. But it's kind of like that. Like, you got to be prepared to be in the spot. It doesn't matter if it's louder or not. If you're not ready to hold the bass, what does that matter?
Yeah.
You got to be ready to hold the string down. With the proper pressure. If you're not ready to do that, then you're never going to get to what he's talking about in the first place. You got to be ready to receive the thing. It's not, your mind's going to be clear. Your technique's got to be right. That's why we work on all that stuff, not to be technical, but to just to minimize the time it takes to get to the thing.
That's
You know what I mean?
That's such a great answer. Just to be ready to receive.
Just to be ready, man. You got to be ready to get the thing. You can't.
Yeah.
If you're not ready, it's like catching the ball, man. It's like it's like, I mean, how many times when you're in Little League or something, it's like, I wish the ball would come to me, and you're looking away, and bam, the ball goes right over your head. You're like, what? Why? You're so upset. But they're never screaming at you. Why aren't you paying attention? It's like you got to be. I mean, every play. I mean, that's why the pitcher does all that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, as soon as the pitchers, I mean, you're all kind of like just. But as soon as you see the pitcher, then you're like everyone goes down because that's the cue. That's your preparation to be ready. You can be before that. You can be anywhere else you want to be.
Yeah.
But when you see a certain set of things, you got to get ready. So I mean, I could be looking all over the place, and I can't. But as soon as I see a certain set of situations, a certain set of indicators, it's time. That's go time. There's nothing else to think about. There's no one else there. It's just us.
Yeah.
Getting ready to play music.
Yeah.
So.
I always see you focusing in like that too.
You have to, man. I mean, that's maybe the biggest thing I've learned over the years is that you don't really get too many chances to do it. And you certainly don't get many chances to refocus. You got to be focused, like, you can kind of play it off a little bit. You could get, I mean, I'm good at getting, I mean, I got it down to like this much time now.
How do you do it? Like, is there anything keys or?
No, just be ready.
Yeah.
I mean, now, I think maybe early was just kind of, I mean, I used to be thinking too much about myself. Because you're always worried about yourself. I mean, it's not just playing, it's also a career. It's not just the career, it's the associations that you're going to make.
Yeah.
So there's always someone you want to impress. I don't care I mean, I think the people who you see who do really well early are people who don't care about that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There are people who really care about making great music and being with other people making great music.
Yeah.
And that's why they kind of tend to succeed so fast and get their own thing so fast. But then a lot of us are worried about how to get that.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people. I really worried a lot about how I was going to make this work or how I was going to be successful.
How I'm going to become that guy,
Yeah, how I'm going to be able to, support myself and these things and what people like that look like, meaning, how technically proficient are they? How well do they have the gift of gab? How many tunes do they know? How exciting are they? How well do they play the melody? All those things. So you have to get used to the idea that you don't have to necessarily project all of that at every second.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's something I had to learn. And that there's not, it's like jamming, what would we say? What's this good sports song? I can't think of one. Oh, you're just forcing it. You know what I mean? You're just really you're forcing your swing there. Like you don't have to try so hard. And not every situation is a home run. I mean, if all you need is to get hit by the pitch to win the game, sometimes you just have to block the box. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to hit. If you have to hit a grand slam, I mean, that's a great fantasy moment. But I mean, if you could just get a nick and walk in, like let's do that. That's a little bit higher percentage there. So I mean, I think I used to worry a lot about things like that, and now I don't really. So I think that opens it up a lot too.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, that's just something I was thinking about this week, even because like I was even praying about it because there's a verse in the Bible where it says there's a fox right outside. Look at that. It says if you seek first the kingdom of God, all these other things that you could want, they'll just be added unto you. Whereas like, you can be seeking after, what do I eat? What do I drink? How do I make a living? No, if you focus on what, I just felt like he was saying that to me about music too. Like, you could always focus on, how do I get this gig? How do I impress this person? What if you just focus on, the main thing, making the music, and all these other things are going to fall into place.
I think that's.
But I haven't always done that. I've definitely been, especially I remember moving to New York. Playing with Johnny O'Neill, all these people want my gig. Peter Washington is at the bar. I really wanted to like me. It's like, my heroes.
Man,
it's intense.
I think that. I mean, I think that this is the kind of conversation a lot of people don't really have in what we do, and it's really sad because it's something that more of us should know about this. I think that people don't talk enough about what their ego, what need and ego and just natural humanity do to you as a musician. I mean, it's very difficult to put all of your it is Bugs. To put all of your trust in the idea that you're going to be able to make a living playing music.
Yeah, those things get mixed in with the artistry of it,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
and people don't, and society doesn't really know anything about it, to the point that by the time you've gotten to a space where you're about to try to start earning money, you don't even really know what that lifestyle is about. You know, I mean, there's not really people. A lot of people tell you things about what you might need and what you should be doing, and do this guy and get that, but no one really talks to you about what we're talking about the feelings you actually have. I mean, we don't have. There is no musicians' unemployment. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no, you can't go to the musical union and say, I just got fired from so-and-so's gig. What you got for me, boss? It's like, there's nothing like that for us. There's no...
Was that pretty crushing when you got fired from that gig you were talking about earlier?
It was absolutely devastating.
How did you move forward from that?
I mean, I've always been lucky with things. I mean, I've only had major firings. Well, I only had two firings in my career. And I guess both of them were major. And then I had one like minor skirmish, I'll call it.
Okay.
like where it was a possibility of a gig, but just didn't go through. The person wasn't satisfied. And all three of them were really rough, man. I didn't like that feeling at all. I mean, there was one with Nicholas, and he was talking about tempo. And there's one with Joey, and that was just more he was looking to make a change.
Yeah.
But it was a change that allowed me to play with Monty. So that was, there's that.
Yeah.
And then there was this time I was working with a singer, and it just didn't work. We weren't connecting on a fundamental level. And it was a tempo issue too, but that was a different tempo issue. That was more, that was what we were talking about earlier, where people feel what you, I always say this, people feel what we can make people feel what we want them to feel. And overwhelmingly, this lady was just feeling my insecurity and my desire to please. But sometimes, I mean, I think, what did the kids say today? Like, the ick is real. I mean, sometimes between a man and a woman, if you're giving off, I mean, really between two human beings, but specifically men and women because of the potential romantic innuendo that lies there. If you're too nice and also at the same time it shows signs of insecurity, that can be very unsettling to like I said, especially between men and women, because of the inherent potential for romance. Not that it was a romantic relationship, but that's kind of always in the air. The societal
the dynamics are different.
The dynamics for that are always more skewed towards romantic friendship than fellatio friendship. Like, you're not going to be, brotherly love is brotherly love. Right? That's why.
So that's me and you, man.
You know what I'm saying? So
that's going on right now.
Fellatio relationships are like that. Romantic relationships are romantic. So that's why it's always skewed more that way. So, but I've also had it happen with men too. I mean, where you. Men tend not to like that either, because if you're doing it for a woman, in modern terms, they would call it a simp, which is kind of, I'm sorry.
That's all good.
I say a ridiculous term anyway, but between men, you would call it kissing ass. You know what I mean? Like, if you're overly just trying really hard, but also not really asserting yourself in any way, you're a kiss ass.
Well, I mean, I felt that I've been that way musically too, right? Because it's like, when you're playing, I just want to give this person what they want musically. I just want to make sure that I'm playing the beat the way that he likes it. And when you just do that, it doesn't actually work, right?
No,
because you have to put yourself, what the band needs is, it needs you doing what you believe in and being yourself. And that's something I learned about rhythm too, because when I just, for years, I was always trying to put the beat, where does this guy like the beat, where does this guy like the chord? Really, what they needed was for me to play it the way that I liked it, the way that felt good to me, and then all of a sudden everything came together. Because when you do what feels good to you, and when I do what feels good to me, and then we can find the meeting place. But if it's so awkward, I don't know. You've been in those situations where it's like, let me go with him, and he's trying to go with me. It's just it's embarrassing, It's like it's like a conversation when it goes that way too,
Yeah, man. I think.
Oh no, we can do what you want to do. No, it's just.
That's what I'm saying, man. It's like you can't. I mean.
But that just comes with maturity sometimes too. Although some people just seem to come out of the womb and they've got it. No, this is where it is,
I think, of course. I mean, like everything, man.
Yeah.
I mean, but that's kind of. I mean, each one was crushing, man. I mean, like I said, it's crushing that, you know, I mean, because from her perspective, you know, she had been trying a lot of drummers, and I needed a gig.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and I had, you know, I mean, I had all the reasons I needed, but I needed a gig. You know, and she had a pretty good gig. They were working a lot.
Yeah.
Music was pretty easy and pretty fun. You know, but people can feel what you know, you know, your mood and everything around you is contagious. And so she could really feel my trepidation. I mean, it was mostly fear of not doing the right thing.
Yeah.
And so that made everything really uptight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not great. And there were some time issues, but I got a couple of recordings. You know, like good recordings, like I think, because we were in a bunch of like, you know, of those kinds of places. Like we were in Scandinavia a bunch and in Switzerland. So there were like two. We were actually at Kuyi.
Yeah.
So that they, and then one gig in Denmark. Like we had two full like nice recordings that I got, and it got so bad, man, that my best friend at the time had got me the gig, and he called me pissed off because she had given me such a bad review.
Oh wow.
And then I was like, man, I'm sorry, man, but I really, you know, so I just sent him the tapes. And he called me back like a day later, and he was like, man, I'm so sorry. I just got off the phone with so-and-so, and I cursed them out. Because like, man, I heard those CDs, man, they sounded great, man. I don't know what you was talking about. Now, those were 2 gigs out of a 3-week tour.
Right.
You know, but it just goes to show that I mean, and they were like the gigs closer to the end.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that, you know, it's hard to break a first impression. So her first impression was nice guy. It could come, you know, we could keep going along, and I kept talking about, but it could get better and better, you know. But she was having some issues with like time. So whatever issues I helped to eliminate over 3 weeks were eliminated enough that by the time I listened to the tape, the final tapes, and my friend listened, there wasn't really any craziness. It wasn't like dragging or rushing out of control. But she could only hear the problems that I had projected earlier.
Yeah.
And my desire of the gig, plus my actual need of the gig, plus not wanting to lose it, all just made a swirling emotion.
Not trying to lose something is not a way to keep it.
No, exactly. Not trying to lose is not going to help you win.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's like, and then, like I said, with Joey, it was pretty rough because, you know, I mean, that was my soul brother, man. I mean, that was really like, there's things that I mean, I felt like there was so much more we could. It was like a bad breakup for me, you know, like where it was like, well, why? Like, we still haven't had, you know, the children yet, or we didn't go on the honeymoon, you know, like it was really that kind of feeling for me.
Man.
You know what I mean? Where it was just really, I was just thinking about all the things we had talked about, and not like posturing. I mean, I think that there are things that he really wanted to do. It's just that life is like that sometimes, you know. So, and then like I said, and then Nicholas was just that was pretty brutal. But luckily, every time something like that's happened, I mean, I think I want to say after Nicholas's thing, I ended up doing the singer's thing, so that wasn't a great transition. But after that, I think that
one thing led to another, and you went up and up. Yeah.
I think I went to Pat Martino after that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then, you know, and then so I mean, it really wasn't. And then after Joey's thing, I went to Monty.
Yeah.
So I mean, I really can't complain about it from that angle. I mean, it's always
it's
rough.
good to remember when something goes down to know that something else is coming along.
Yeah, I mean, not that I wait. I mean, you don't. You know, it's not like I think like, oh well, it doesn't matter. That's something great. It's like, you know,
it's a big deal. Yeah,
because anything can happen. But I mean, it was it hurts. But then you kind of regroup.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that part of the reason that, you know, the way I play feels the way it does now is in part because of the lessons I learned from those gigs and things, and the chips, the natural chip you keep on your shoulder from when things like that happen that you never want that to happen again. So how are you going to prevent that from happening? You know, and I think it was all necessary to grow. I don't think it was a bad thing. It was painful, but it wasn't. It wasn't something that was going to keep me down. So, you know.
Well, man, this has been awesome.
Yeah, sure.
This has been a great conversation. Maybe one more final question, just
anything, man.
What about this final advice for any younger musicians?
I would say just play all the time, man. Just play, play all the time.
Yeah.
Listen to as much music as you possibly can, you know, and listen to it. Don't just have it on or do your favorite parts, but try to soak up every I mean, that's one of the things I noticed about Monty. I mean, how many things does Monty hip you to, man? You know, how many, you know, would check this part out and this part, like, you know, like really dig deep into every aspect of playing that you can.
Yeah.
And don't hold that in reserve. There's nothing to hold in reserve.
Right.
Just go for it. You know?
Right. This is awesome, Jason. Thanks so much for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge.
Oh man, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's nice to talk, man.
Fun to talk. So I'll pop this up on the internet, and I'm sure a lot of people around the world will get something out of it.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, and I'm blessed to play with you. So thank you for.
Of course, man.
Yeah,
I mean, now,
thanks
you know,
for
I would like to finish up on that second and the penultimate question, man. I like to play more gigs with cats like you, man. I really enjoyed playing your music, man.
That was fun.
That was a lot of fun, man.
Yeah, we will definitely do that
That
again.
was a lot of fun. So.
Okay, thanks again, Jason.
All right, man. Take it easy.
All right.